All right, we're going to kick things off. I want to thank you again for joining. And if you are here for our Prompting AI for Better Results, you are in the right place. We are recording today's session. However, the automatic link that will generate after this will not work. So we will share the recording and slides after the session is complete, just so you are aware. For those who don't know who I am, I'm a learning strategist with Planet Technologies. My name is Jada Cheek, and I am going to have the privilege and opportunity to guide you through today's session. I have had the opportunity, me and my team, of working with many of you already to roll out and give you a great opportunity to collaborate with us in learning about Copilot and successfully collaborating. So today we're looking to still drive your success. My goal is simply to see where you are in the process, ensure that I give you some real world examples, and ultimately give you a stepping stone and start helping you have some guidance in the right direction. Of course, I'm supported by a great team. It is not just me. So we have a great group of people here from Planet as well that will help answer questions in the chat. So please feel free to ask any questions that come about, share your comments, any concerns that you've crossed paths with about your journey in exploring the environment with Copilot. We know that you've learned a lot. We've learned a lot as well. So we want to make sure that everything surrounding the tool is kind of shared with you, and you give us the opportunity to hear about your experiences and discuss that process. So don't be tempted to think it means that we're all here and we're advanced and we're successful. This is ultimately the place where everyone has reached some sort of peak. We are in positions of learning more, and so using generative AI is a completely new workflow for most of us. And ultimately, like I said, we're here to learn from our personal experiences. And we know that one thing we've always announced is that we want to be patient with the process and don't be afraid to explore where we can. And this is the opportunity and moment where we can definitely do so. So, to just briefly share with you about the agenda, we're going to go into AI prompting fundamentals, some prompting components, our approaches and styles, an analysis exercise, AI tools, response variations, tips and tricks will be in the conclusions. And as we talked about housekeeping items, um, the chat is wide open. And we want you to be a part of this experience and exercise. So, with that being said, during the prompting analysis exercise, that chat is going to be used to its peak. We want to encourage you to follow along, engage with us, test out your Copilot. So if you haven't explored already or you're looking to enhance, I will have some prompting techniques, some things for you to try out during this experience. And also, if you have some things that you've tried out and you want to share how they worked well for you, some successes, even some lows, and you found that, hey, this is the workaround that works for me, feel free to drop those comments, those ideas. Today is all about sparking inspiration and building upon that. So, just giving you an idea of what you walked into, this is going to be interactive, and we are here to make sure that the team is in the chat, in the Q&A, and we are ready to support you all. So let's get started. Getting started with ultimately a little background. We want to talk about safety. We want to make sure you're comfortable. So AI is very much a buzzword right now, and the generative tool coming into the market, and it's incredibly popular, powerful, and they're allowing us to do things like summarize lengthy documents, create new and professional content for our teams or for our customers, and support us across almost every step of our existing workflows. It's implemented throughout. So these tools can provide assistance, insights, and help us with rephrasing and refining or recreating content. So I do want to emphasize how important it is that we use the approved AI services because of how many of these generative AI functions and tools do function and grow their knowledge. There's a real risk of unintentionally exposing personal and confidential data if we don't. So the good news is that Copilot, when you're signed in with your work credentials, you do help ensure data integrity in applying this same enterprise grade data protection you've already used across your other Microsoft applications. So the bottom line is many AI tools online do not protect your company's data. When you use Copilot with your work account, enterprise data protection does apply immediately. So this means your data stays inside your organization's tenant and it is not used to train the AI models. As we've said previously, you aren't going to find your information across the world being used in any examples or anything like that. So please feel comfortable to explore and to dive in deeper to figure out your environment. The goal is that you're practicing. So if your organization is a commercial business, think retail, healthcare, or finance, you're almost certainly in an enterprise commercial cloud is what we could refer to it as. For example, we might have private sectors, higher education, or most non-regulated organizations, and this is almost certainly the cloud you're in. For government agencies or contractors, there will be some differences in features availability due to specific security requirements. But today we'll focus on the enterprise slash commercial experience. Just so you know, this is enterprise slash commercial experience. Do want to share that with you all for those here. Copilot in this environment sits inside your existing Microsoft 365 trust boundary, and this is the same boundary that already protects your files, emails, Teams chat, and SharePoint sites. Copilot isn't a separate mystery system. It's layered on top of security and compliance controls your organization already has in place. And then in the commercial cloud, Microsoft operates secure data centers around the world. Your organization chooses where its tenant is hosted, for example, in North America, Europe, or another region. The idea is that Copilot honors the same data residency decisions your tenant already follows. It doesn't suddenly move your continent to some other random location. It stays within the M365 environment. Your IT team has already approved what you have in place. And next, you'll notice from the presentation, some compliance alphabet soups that's already mentioned, and these are widely recognized independent security and privacy standards. Microsoft 365 and therefore Copilot in the commercial cloud is built to meet these requirements. That means things like strong information security management systems, management controls, that ISO 27001, for example, independent audits through requirements and alignments with GDPR for organizations that have managed EU personnel data. You don't have to remember each of these. I'm just giving you sorry, giving you a few examples. I'm having some tongue twisters. A few examples so that you understand how it inherits the same enterprise grade compliance posture as the rest of Microsoft 365. Like we said, we want you to know what it is that is happening in your environment. And finally, my third point here is encryption in transit and at rest. So anytime Copilot is accessing your organization's content, whether that is a Word document, a Teams chat, or a SharePoint file, that data is encrypted while it's moving between services, while it's stored on a disk. So your prompts, the context, the Copilot, context Copilot looks at, and the response it generates are all being protected using the same encryption that already secures your email files today. And just taking a pause there because I know security is a concern and we want to be very cautious and very confident when we're discussing it. So if there are any questions, don't hesitate to use our chat to confirm anything you may want to know at this time. Keeping the train rolling, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about prompting. And so, with this idea in mind, if you don't mind, the chat is open and we're going to just do something simple. Like I said, it's a little engaging here, but I'll ask you to actually give me a reaction or tell me, well, not even give me a reaction. You're just going to put in the chat. You can do it by giving me a number. How do you typically prompt with AI? Are you a one? I'm not sure what a prompt even is, as in, what are you referring to? Two, I usually use the suggested prompts. Have you tested those out? 3, I make my own prompts with mixed results. 4, I use the suggested prompts and my own prompts. You're a combo user. You've tested out some of those built-in prompts that Microsoft suggests, and you go in and you ask your own prompt ideas. 5, I know how to craft prompts like a pro in all forms, suggested and on my own. So you're confident in your usage. You might be a number 5. So in the chat right now, just give me your number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, we have some confident users. I see. I opened it up and I was so the 5 automatically. My heart rate. Ooh. Okay. Anyone else? These are nice. I'm excited. Okay. This is awesome. We have 3, 4, and 5. And anybody in here that is a 1 or a 2, do not be shy. Do not be scared. This is a session for everyone. You do not have to be someone of a high caliber user. To be in here today. So don't feel like these 5s are the peak. If anything, I think it speaks volume to probably how much they've gone in and maybe gone through to experience and test out the tool as much as possible, or even any AI tool that they might be experiencing. So I think that's awesome. I hope that you all who are sharing those in the chat, you will be very vocal in telling us about your experiences very soon as we continue on throughout this. So for any new users or those getting acquainted with your AI tools, a prompt is just a set of instructions. That is what I was referring to. When you go into your AI tool and giving it a guide of instructions and asking for some sort of response. So when you are giving instructions to a helpful assistant, to your colleague, you are basically saying, hey, here's what I want, here's what I'm telling you, here's all the information, and here's all the insights I have to provide you. You are prompting them with all the knowledge and information that you have. And sometimes when you go to your AI tool, that's what you're doing. You're giving them everything you have, hopefully, in order to push out a very optimal output. So the idea is that the clearer and more specific your prompt is, the better the AI can understand and respond with useful information. AI models function as advanced predictive text, aiming to generate the most likely continuation based on your input. So clear, detailed prompts yield better results. It's going to be the main idea here. For example, a simple summarizes article versus a specific context-rich prompt produce marked or marketed towards maybe you mentioning what the article is about, maybe you tagging the article and referencing it in the prompt as well. There are different ways to do this, and that's what we're going to share today. We're going to discuss how those different prompt approaches blend or determine what kind of output you'll get. And then, of course, why does it matter? Why am I so adamant about making sure you guys have an idea of what you're doing when you are using your AI tool? Because it's not magic and it definitely cannot read your mind. So if we give it something short, we give it something vague, it's going to fill in its blanks on its own. It's going to say, hey, this is what I think, this is what I believe, based off of background. And sometimes that works, but most of the time it's not so great. And why would I want to take my chances? So these 5 prompting skills help you give AI what it needs so your results come out closer to what you actually want. What are those principles we're referring to? We have some. So we'll introduce some core principles of effective prompting, thinking of them as the what to do before you even start. We want to always have an idea of what our goal is in mind, and effective prompting starts with clarity. Being specific in your instructions, providing context by sharing relevant background information so that the AI understands your goal, setting constraints to define boundaries and desired format. Iteration is key, refining prompts based on results, and use a think it through approach by asking AI to explain its reasoning step by step. Sometimes we get so caught up in the need for it to be quick that we'll rather leave out certain details to produce an outcome so quick. But if we probably gave more details up front, we get an optimal output that required us to do less work. And that is all about the purpose of us implementing this into our workflow. We're trying to beat productivity, we're trying to ease the workflow and enhance our skills. So we want to keep these in the back of our mind as our baseline for getting started. Do we have our own clear and specified goals in mind for if this was the perfect output, if they could get this right and how I wanted it or imagine it to come out? What would that look like? That's always what I ask myself. If this could come out how I want it, maybe not on the first try, but at the end of the day, what does that look like? And that hones in on how I want to ask the tool, specifically Copilot today, how I want to have this get done for me. And then, of course, understanding AI's limitations. I think this isn't spoken about more than enough because we have this high regard for it. And sometimes we forget that just like us, we're human, things happen. Can mistakes happen? Yes. Understanding AI is one of those things that has limitations applied to it as well. So AI models can produce hallucinations where they generate fabricated or incorrect information presented as facts. And as we talked about, sometimes we jump straight into these prompts and we don't provide any background information. We don't provide enough details. And so, as I stated, yes, they can create their own ideas and start adding in, information instead of leaving it blank. It might make up a date of when we are now going to say this training or information is going to be due or going to occur. Little things go a long way. And then, unlike search engines, AI language models do not retrieve verified data, but they use pattern matching to generate responses. So it's important to critically evaluate AI outputs as they may sound convincing, yet be inaccurate. Sometimes it sounds so confident and it's like, oh, it has to be right. Well, we want to have that human approach. You want to be hands on and being able to review the information, have your own understanding of the topic as well. That is highly encouraged so that you can go in and reference and review one, the sources that are being used, but two, the information that is being put out by the tool so that you are able to go in and just say, let me double check this. Do I have knowledge? This information isn't correct. And like I said, when you're using your own personal examples or you're giving more details, then you have something to base the information off of that should have been produced. So we want to have this awareness that there are limitations and that there is opportunity for error. And so don't be afraid to double check anything that occurs in this moment. And with that, fact checking is always going to be something practical that we still encourage in making sure that everything is credible. And you want to identify that there is going to be what we know a tool built in to Copilot, as I'll show you, that allows you to see where they are pulling their information and sourcing from if the tool needs to pull from an outside resource. So a practical fact-checking framework for AI-generated content does involve 3 steps. First, identifying the source and credibility of the information presented, then cross-referencing the claim with a trusted independent resource. Finally, analyzing for context and potential bias to ensure balanced and accurate evaluation. So if the AI cites a safety standard, as we saw, you want to verify it against the official document. So once again, make sure you have the original resource to check. Check that the AI cited it for credibility and using the official resource. Look for references to the official, maybe government website, the internal policy document you might be using, things like that to confirm that the source is relevant, it is current, it is up to date. Look for those keywords that might be in there, any HIPAA, all of that is should be keywords things that you are able to cross-reference. And I am just throwing out examples that we are able to consider when we are typically trying to cross-reference and double check. Sometimes we're moving quick, but these are just small things to check for. Maybe you're trying to validate some factual accuracy. You can manually verify key facts and figures. You can cross-check dates, like I said, statistics. You can use, like I said, your internal documentation, external regulatory sites. Um, One example we have here is if AI claims that ADA was updated in 2023 to include remote work accommodations. You are able to confirm this by reviewing the ADA site or your HR compliance updates. Where are those informations going to be stored at for you to have an opportunity to review? Um, just some examples. Don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but the idea here is that you are able to refer back to something to cross-check your references, to analyze and to review anything for confirmation and having some sort of protocol in the manner of making sure credibility is intact for anything produced by an AI resource. And with that being said, because I know there is always clarification that I can additionally provide. Are there any questions regarding fact checking, credibility, the resources and tools provided within um, Copilot as you are about to see them? Because we are going to head into our demo environment to just briefly get started and do a tour and to kind of welcome you all into what is Copilot. Awesome. Take silence for we're ready. So in the chat, those keeping up with me, of course, we're going to start posting some things there. Keeping it very simple. If you want to follow along and then you also have some prompt ideas that pop in your head, I just want to make sure you have the opportunity to go ahead and access the Copilot chat experience. Feel free to use your app experience, whatever you prefer is all up to you. But I am going to go ahead and get started. So one moment as I transition. All right. Looks like my screen did that last time. Oh, interesting. Am I? It's going to bother me. I don't know what that is about. I know what it's about, and I'm going to be picky if you guys don't mind. I will completely end the slasher just to give you a full view that doesn't look like that. All right. So with this in mind now, we are going to actually go ahead and get started. So one, I just want to welcome you all to what is this experience for us to do a brief walkthrough because we're going to be experiencing a few things. Starting in the top right of navigation items that I want you to make sure you have and know where to find is going to be the start a new chat icon in the top right for me. It does allow me to access this blue icon, and it is going to be just a square box with a little pen, and that's like a writing pad, I call it. But anytime you're looking to get back here to this navigation screen and get started over, it is going to bring you back here where you have a text box for you to begin prompting. Of course, we always want to start somewhere. And so when you start somewhere, it's that text box at the center of the screen, and you can begin prompting with Copilot. And so when you put your cursor in that box, you get automatically a few things. The first thing is, hey, do you want to pick up where you left off? As you can see, my cursor is in the box, and from the drop-down menu is actually my history. So I know you're probably looking at my history like, well, it looks pretty repetitive. It actually is, because one thing I want to encourage you as you practice and engage is start over. That's why I showed you how to, one, use the start a new chat feature in the top right, because you might start a conversation with Copilot and the conversation doesn't go as planned, or you realize, hey, I could have said it better this way. And that's what I was playing around here doing. So you'll notice that while I can click into these to pick up where I left off, each conversation might have ended differently. So your chat history does appear, showing you a brief preview of the last few conversations that you had right here. When you click inside of the text box, it is also going to be on the left-hand side in the navigation area. When you scroll down as well, you can see that you have this option to view your chats fully as well. When you scroll down, you'll see the all chats option. All chats is going to give you a full view. Just clicking that to show you that you have two ways. A brief shortcut is going to be in that text box when you are on the Copilot chat homepage and you are in your text box getting ready to type a prompt. And then you have on the left hand side navigation for you to click all chats when you scroll down, and you'll see all the chats you've previously had. It does go further back. You have the opportunity to filter these out, begin typing keywords if you would like, if you're looking for something in specific you might have previously done. But I have quite a few with the word project in there. I then also have the option to filter it out. And your filter is just going to be the option to see any pages you may have created when you were in a conversation. So there's one here when I was having a conversation with Copilot that I turned this into a page. And so if I wanted to shortcut and get there, that is perfectly fine. If you have any questions about your Copilot chat history, feel free to drop those in the chat, but I am going to head back to the new chat screen and go back here to place my cursor in the text box. With us being here, we now want to talk about what we would do to start a conversation. Two thoughts that come into mind is one, starting my day. How does that look? Is there anything that comes to mind that I want to do to get started? Or are there any ideas that I need support with? Well, yes, there are ideas I need support with. And one thing Copilot does a great job with is giving you some prompt suggestions. One of their new features is giving you some keyword suggestions that appear right here below the text box. So we're jumping just a little bit below the text box now to look at these keywords: trending, rewrite, explain, and proofread. Mine might be a little different from yours because they do update as you on a daily basis. I actually can't say that it's going to be the same each time, but they change. These keywords are just pre-built conversation starters designed to help you get started quickly. The idea is it's a way to reduce blank page anxiety when you don't know what to ask Copilot yet. Sometimes we're just like, I just need a quick way to explain something. I just need a quick way to summarize. Some of those other options that you might see that I don't have up there right now is summary. You might see draft. You might see explain, brainstorm. All of those are other options that appear. Like I said, this does ultimately change out. These suggestions are based on common tasks that you might find yourself doing often. And then the idea is that you'll just figure out what's appropriate based off the items you're accessing, meaning files you're constantly using and things like that. So that's how those are going to be quick shortcuts. We'll come back to grab those because what we really want to see is the ellipsis icon directly to the right that takes us to one of those features that hopefully you heard of, that prompt gallery. So you have what is on the Copilot navigation page, some shortcuts with keywords that say, hey, if you click these keywords, we're going to give you a few suggestive prompts to get started just without leaving the navigation page. Or you can click the ellipsis icon and we'll give you our traditional Copilot prompt gallery that has been here since day one. And if you are a Copilot user and you've been following along and practicing for some time, you know the prompt gallery is a great way to sharpen your skills when you're looking to get started as well. So these are another set of suggestions that are organized as prompt ideas for you to go through and look. The good part about this area is it is also going to be the home of a few suggested ways to sort these out. Are you looking for prompts that are going to be creative? You can filter these options out as much as you want. I'm going to stick with creative just to show you and scroll through that now these prompts are all around, hey, are you trying to improve your writing? Rewrite this to sound more professional and less verbose. So are we talking about tone? And are you referring to a specific text that you want to insert here? How is the grammar? Do you want feedback and refinement on something specific that you've been working on? And you don't know how to specifically word that, prompt that idea, this is that idea of being able to get started. So with these filters, you have that option there. You can deselect as well, and it'll bring you back. Job type is another filter option that appears across the way. And so from here, you have this option that allows you to go in and choose some departments that might correlate to your position in your role. If you've never used it, feel free to play around. What I like to point out here is this is and always is just like any Microsoft product in development. So while I can click human resources, I think if I click legal, or is it one of these? There we go. Information management. As you can see, I only got one item here. So some people might say, hey, I want a little bit more. I'm in IT. Give it a little time. We're working on it. They're working on it. Ideas are always welcome. You can give some suggestions. This is why it's an open forum. We want to hear your ideas, what you might be working on. What are some prompts in your experience that you found worked for you? But the idea of the prompt gallery is ultimately we want to make sure that these are simply suggestions for you. They are not commands, they are not required, but they're suggestions for helping you figure out what it is that Copilot can help you, some of those common tasks that people are constantly using, making them more high quality prompting scenarios and output opportunities for quality outputs. So we'll come back to this because we're going to test out some things already. Since we're here and we want to experience our prompt gallery, I want to check in with you guys and see, are you using this not only for getting started and having a productivity ongoing day, productive ongoing day is more so how I should word that, but we always encourage icebreaker prompts, and I have a good one that I am going to place here, but I also have two for you to try. If you want the one I have, feel free to let me know. I'll put it in the chat, but because for me, I like to give you ones that you might use ongoingly throughout your day, or you might take back and say you want to use this for something else. You can save them. So in the chat, you will see what is now. Oh, looks like, okay, cool. You should see two prompts, and those are what we call icebreaker prompts. When you are at a point in your day where you're just like, hey, I want to kick things off. And so with these prompts, I am going to basically give Copilot an idea of, hey, I have something I need to get done for the day. Nothing too serious, but ultimately I have some communications that I need to share with my team. For this one, we are drafting a quick email to my team, wishing them a great start to the week, including a section for me to discuss important reminders. At the end, I said, share a random fun fact in honor of Women's History Month. I specifically like this one because it is not really asking for anything technical. And I just spoke to Copilot more so about natural language. Even that first one that I gave you all, we're having a conversation with Copilot, giving it a role. You guys have the opportunity to tell Copilot your goal, and you're giving it a little context in which that is really the foundation of good prompting. So this is the idea of us having that previous conversation of what is a prompt, why clarity matters, and that your AI tool doesn't read minds, because it doesn't. So I was able to share with them that, hey, we're drafting an email. So they're now knowing that the output should be in an email format. I also want to discuss some important reminders and updates. I'm going to fill in those blanks. So make sure I just have a section about that. And then let's see, did I get a good Women's History Month fun fact? Did you know that the world's first computer programmer was a woman? Ida Lovelace wrote the first algorithm intended for a machine back in the 1840s, long before modern computers even existed. And it says, let's make it a great week as always. Best Adele, which is my account I'm in. And I don't know about you all, but I think that is considered a great just template for me to possibly say this might work for this month. And I say this month because, as we were previously talking about, these are the ideas that you all are kicking off your week. We were talking about getting started, making sure that we have something with the prompt gallery. And when you create new prompts, as you know, you have the opportunity to review in your prompt area. As you hover over them, the option to edit, in which the edit option will repurpose that prompt and let you see it in the text box below to make edits and adjustments. When you hover over, you have the option to just copy this and maybe you'll paste it somewhere else so that you can reuse it for later. Or simply, if I'm going to use this all for the month of March, which I know we're near the end, I might just say, hey, save this prompt. And we're going to say March weekly prompt. And excuse my typing, but we're saving it. And now it says view in that prompt gallery. And as you know, we were in the prompt gallery earlier, but there was a section I skipped over. But to briefly show you and to go back, we started in suggested where I left off. And then we came back to the navigation home screen to welcome you guys into prompting. And we just did a get started prompt and an icebreaker, and now we're hearing your prompts where we saved it. And now I am going to have a March weekly prompt saved ongoingly that I am able to reuse simply just like this because it works for me. I like the output. I like the fact that it gave me a template. It minded the organization that I needed. It was light in conversation. The tone was awesome. The idea that this is why prompting matters. I was able to see that, hey, this is going to be something that works for my productivity each week. Ultimately, I'll have a shortcut now because I know how easy it is to get to the prompt gallery. So just breaking the ice here, showing you how smooth sailing this was to kick off my week and ultimately checking in with my team ongoingly by setting something up that only took a matter of hopefully 2 minutes if I was perfectly timed. Pausing here to check for navigation, questions, comments, or concerns as we are going to go ahead and transition into the demo so that transition back into the presentation so we can chat more in detail about those prompting tips you guys need. Okay, let's get back here. This is where we left off, and it looks like we've been swapped. Forgive that moment. Let's get into the goods. So context engineering, which is extremely important. This is the idea of prompt engineering and making sure that we give AI as much information as we can. They don't know your style. They don't know your goal. They don't know your situation. And I say they as in Copilot. So when we give it clear context, it's like handling a baby with care. This is going the extra mile to make sure they have all the things and necessities they need to survive. And so in this instance, I need you to survive by helping me create this draft, helping me create this project. So when we give it clear context, we are handing a coworker everything they need instead of expecting them to guess. We don't want our Copilot assistant to have to guess. This avoids generic answers and helps AI sound more like you or more like the desired output. This is just a foundational skill. And like I previously said, about a mindset that you want to kind of conform to in building your prompts, which is up next. At the beginning of this, we want to find a way to bring all of this together. There are a few different prompting approaches that I'll share with you. And I don't want you to try to remember every single one of these, but I want you to start thinking, what can I include? What can I take into consideration? So here is our first one that I do like the most, because I think this is one that a lot of people do or already have started doing and don't know that they actually have a good grasp on this concept. And so, what does an efficient prompt look like? What parts are present? When you include these finer details, such as a persona, assign Copilot a role relative to the prompt. This allows Copilot to gain an understanding regarding its perspective on the topic or intended output. Then you have task. Let Copilot know what we're intending to accomplish or what goal we're seeking. Format is the idea of informing Copilot regarding the medium in which the content will be used, any details regarding the format it should take. Audience is referring to Copilot assisting with relaying details, communicating or instructing an audience, knowing the audience will guide Copilot to the best possible output. And then finally, tone, which is the messaging and content that may not resonate with our audience as intended if we're not mindful of how we're saying it or what we're saying. So we want to inform Copilot regarding the tone of the output based on the situation or context. And so these elements combined in a single prompt, if you chose to use every single piece of this, could very well be a detailed blueprint for a maximal output. And so where we discover opportunity to adjust them is making sure we have those, like I said, finer details to continue to push our conversation with Copilot back and forth. So maybe you're like, okay, I do this sometimes. I include some of these. There is alternate ways. This is another acronym that is also something that you can apply to your prompting styles. So these elements are fundamentally the same. GCSE, which is referring to a goal. Start the prompt by informing Copilot what we're hoping to achieve or discover. Context, which is providing Copilot the context details about the goal and the audience for which its output is intended. Source, this can include references, content, or specified content from which Copilot will source an understanding of the topic and related details. And expectation, what we need Copilot to do for us, including the format and tone. So this one seems a little more shorter and direct, but it still has some of those prompting elements that we referred to in the last slide. And so what does that look like? Well, if you were building a prompt, very briefly, it might say something like, think like a project manager and create a detailed agenda, formatted like a schedule to be ready by to be read by my internal team using a collaborative tone. I just threw those together on the spot, but the idea is that you would be building this out by step, and you are able to consider these elements all in all going to align in some order or way to organize and complete your prompting process. So I actually have this ready for you in the chat so you can just go ahead and save it for yourself. I'll share it momentarily because this is one that sometimes we want to remember or have in the back of our head and as an idea. So I'll give that to you as something you can paste in your notes. And then this good one, that I think most people are out here using, because we are quick, we are busy, we have a busy schedule. And so these are a few of the initial approaches when we are using our AI tools. And so there's quite a few. Zero shot, one shot, just to talk about those, is when you hop into the tool and you're like, hey, create a draft email, and you don't give the tool any sort of context about what it should be about. You don't provide any sort of an example or anything like that. Or you might say, hey, create a draft email, and all you do is provide um, how I did a template of what it should look like. Or jumping over to the idea of maybe chain of thought. When we are like, hey, this is the step-by-step process of how I need to analyze this Excel spreadsheet. This is 5 things I need to understand and analyze about this spreadsheet. So explain to me these 5 trends, data insights about this spreadsheet. And Copilot will generate in an optimal output the 5 processes and break down in a step-by-step process of how this came to an understanding. And ultimately, what I'm saying to you, these are all good approaches, but they do have a name, and you want to explore these different ideas to figure out what works for you, and also, is it appropriate for what you are trying to accomplish? Each one does something different. Depending on what you're trying to do is going to determine what is necessary for your environment. So with this in mind, we're going to go ahead and jump back into our demo area, and we're going to try some of these out so that we can experience them. So I was previously here, and I'm just going to start a new chat, and I am going to show you all some of the ones that we already talked about. And so first up is going to be that zero shot approach, where you have all of the details but no examples at all. So the zero shot approach is when you are in Copilot and you give Copilot its task without any prior examples, no details regarding the objective, the audience. We're not talking about voice delivery, meaning I didn't mention the tone. So right now, Copilot is relying on it doesn't have anything to rely on to infer about what this email should entail, other than, hey, the name of the tool is Microsoft Planner and it's being implemented next month. We're going to compare how when you give Copilot the opportunity to have more details to no details. So in this zero shot approach, you can see here, it came up with what is a draft template, it looks like, and it just says next month. And I don't know how many of you can put yourself in the shoes of a colleague that might say next month, where are the more, where are the finer details? Is this an email you want to see that is possibly promoting something like that? We're supposed to be excited about this. This is something that's rolling out, right? So just to briefly look through, I think there's always room for improvement. So you only want to build to be better. And so with that in mind, maybe I have the opportunity to just say, hey, let me provide some clarification. We're going to instead just click edit and let Copilot put this prompt right on back in here. Press Shift Enter in my keyboard, and I'm going to add more details. Let's add in now what is the template that I want Copilot to use. And I'm pasting it there. So you can see I kept the same prompt, but I'm just going to give them, say, hey, instead of that email you created originally, let's go ahead and choose this layout. This is how I want it to look. This is the details I want. I'm going to press enter, And now this time Copilot has more specific formatting for how I want the email to look for template purposes. And so depending on also how you do have this set up in terms of your layout, it will produce different ones. You can see here I do have the opportunity to change my display. I'm going to leave it alone just for the sake of time. We're not that worried, but this is something you can still copy and paste. So I'll actually scroll down. So please don't worry that they are giving me line by line specifics. This is still able to be copied and pasted. So just scrolling through so you can see it breaks it down by subject, letting me know what our focus is, where, and if I needed a header. Details that I asked to be included are now going to be individually identified. And then the opportunity for me, as I mentioned earlier, what is my next steps? Is this something I want to copy and paste? Is this something I want to go in and now add more specific details? So if maybe I needed to come back to this later, pick up where I left off, I want to say, hey, let's add in some of those finer details as we talked about. Can I add in details about the training dates? Can I add in details about the location? Anything like that? We can go ahead and adjust this. You can see the difference between when I created, as we scroll up, just me offering to share about the original, where it looks more generic as compared to now when I gave it something to focus on, what the output shows. So we do have a completely different output, which is perfectly fine because I gave an example. So just note, zero shot is when you have nothing to have Copilot 2 or your AI tool to refer to. And then we are talking about what is a one-shot approach, where you're using a single example for the tool now to refer to as something you might want to go ahead and jump to. For my last example, before we jump into the presentation and close back out, is going to be that chain of thought. Like I said, sometimes we go into our AI tool and we have a step-by-step process that we want to refer to. We have these ideas that we need an analysis of. So I'm just going to prompt Copilot and give it all of the steps. That's what chain of thought is. We sometimes move too quickly and we automatically say, hey, here's what I am thinking. And then we have to go back and give all of the details we want the tool to consider. But the tool can consider more than one thing at a time. So in this instance, I'm going to say, hey, consider all of this information and give me feedback on the initial prompt. Using my / key, or you have the option to use your add content key. Ooh, why is mine? Looks like I'll go the long way. It looks like maybe this prompt is a little longer. Yep, there we go. So / key, depending on how long your prompt is, mine's a little lengthy, so it wants to populate at the top. But I am going to just select one of my files for reference, and I do have a file here called help desk tickets. And so in this instance, we are allowing the tool to go in and it is going to do an analysis. And this analysis I like is because it's going to show you how logical Copilot is being. And with this, it should go ahead and acknowledge that there's going to be a very important disclaimer in this data set that is intentional with my questions. I know that this data set and the history in here is not going to be able to go back 5 years to determine any trends. And one of the questions in here, it says, consider the trends for the past 5 years. That was going to be one of the prompt questions. I'll show you just so you know. So now Copilot is being very logical, letting me know immediately that, hey, there is a limitation. We are not able to perform the required trend and analysis of that information. But here's what we can consider And it is giving me an idea of, hey, ensuring transparency, going through reasoning, and letting me know that per your instructions, I was not able to simulate this data. And here's what I cannot calculate. But as you can see, here's what we can observe. As I continue to scroll down, I was able to get a list now of insights that were possible, insights that were not possible, an explanation of why they weren't possible. And then, in addition to that, if I scroll down further, just to show you all, what I now need to do in order to now make this Excel spreadsheet accurate for the data questions that I was asking. So I originally asked for them to perform an analysis about data over the trends and information of 5 years. And it says, hey, we couldn't do that. So to fully meet your original request, here are the fields in which you'll need to add to your spreadsheet, which I think is super awesome in order for me to now continue on and possibly have some updates and next steps. And that is going to be one of the prompting approaches of choosing to do chain of thought. When you put all of your questions and ideas up front, instead of having to conversationally go back and forth with Copilot, it gives Copilot an opportunity to break these down into smaller problems and give you some manageable steps. Because I think now, hey, here's what I have, here's what I can do. Let me see what's possible for me to go in and make those updates. This is just an idea for me to see how Copilot's ability to reason through what we probably thought was a complex task. Super awesome and very, very nice to see with these prompting approaches. Like I said, these are some of the ones you've probably encountered yourself. And ultimately, we want to make sure that you know that they are all working for you and there is no wrong way, just different ways to approach depending on what you're trying to do. And that's what today's session was all about. So while we are close to time and I want to make sure that questions do get answered, I want to pause here and ask if there are any questions, comments, or concerns on the prompting approaches that were shared. All right. So as we close out, of course, we just want to conclude with a few tips and tricks. Make sure that you aren't afraid to explore with your Copilot tool or any AI tool. One of the shortcuts we always tell people is to ask Copilot or your AI tool to give you options, and don't be afraid to also say, show your work. How did you come up with this idea? And then something creative, which is create a fact sheet at the end of your document so that you have it as a reference. And then ask me 5 questions that will improve your response. That is something to turn around and ask Copilot. Include this at the end of your prompt. This is the answer to the questions and enter them in another prompt or simply add them to the original prompt. Just better ways to go in. And we want to finally share the opportunity to be able to get clarification. So encouraging you with these small tips and tricks. Don't be afraid to utilize what you can. Once again, we are now equipping you with the capabilities to have a comprehensive understanding of AI tools. There are many practical applications out there, and we want you to have responsible ways to use them and enhance your productivity within your organization. Hopefully, this was an opportunity to embrace the new technology and all of those that are using various tools out there. So, as your organization needs anything, we have helped so many people launch Copilot with confidence. So, if there's anything that our team or Planet can do to help, please feel free to reach out to us. Our information is going to be pasted into the chat for you all at this time. Feel free to email us with that information shared with you. Oh, looks like double the love was dropped into the chat. But thank you again for joining. And once again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to stick around. But we are at time. And you all have a great day.